Hi, I'm Marcus with the IndieMusicLab.com. So today I just want to share 3 quick tips on how to make your alternative productions more alternative, more fun, and just all around better sounding. Let's get into it. Okay, tip number 1 is layer the drums plus add a ton of variation. Now, I'm going to go ahead and show you here inside of Studio One. We're starting with a blank slate, and I just want to give you a feel and a sense of what this looks like to add the variation that I'm talking about and to layer the drums in a way that sounds pleasing, that sounds good. So for a lot of alternative music, I think drum loops can sound really great, especially those vintage breaks and whatever else you might stumble across in a loop library that is miking up acoustic drums. I'm going to start with probably vintage breaks, and then I'm going to see what we have here. So we're in 112 right here. Is usually a good, alternative tempo. Okay, I like that. I'm going to pull that in. So this is what this looks like to start. So I'm going to pull this in. We'll just start it right there. Duplicate that. Now, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to leave that loop as it is for right now. But what I'm also going to do is pull in the impact sampler inside of Studio One. And what I'm able to do now is I'm going to drag this loop and I'm going to hit, Command and Shift at the same time as I'm dragging it in, and that spreads it, it slices it and spreads it across the pads here. So I've got my pad here. So now I can actually use this. One, I can change the beat if I want to, and I can use it for fills, right? So that is a big part of this, is even if you have a loop, you can actually make your own fills often from that loop. So if, let's say we're here, and we want to add a fill at the end of this 4-bar loop. So I'm just going to delete this from there. See, you can add fills like that even if it's not in the original loop by chopping it up like I did inside the impact sampler. Now I'm going to layer this loop that we have here with addictive drums. So I'm going to go ahead and pull in an instance of addictive drums. So the first thing I'm going to do is just get the groove down to match what we have with the loop, and then I'll adjust the preset to whichever one I think sounds good. Now what I'm going to do is quantize this at 50% and then see how that lines up. Again, as I always say, it's really important not to quantize these at 100%. You don't want them directly on the grid. You're trying to get a real acoustic drum sound even as we're layering these in. So here's what we got. Okay, that sounds cool. Now I'm going to add some hi-hats here. Alright, so I like this groove. Now I'm going to delve into some different presets and let's see if we can find something that jives a little bit better with that loop. Okay, I like the sound of this one a lot. I think I'll go with that. Okay, now I'm going to layer in another instance of addictive drums, but this time I'm going to use an old vintage machine style drum kit, and I'm going to start kind of down here in this area. We'll start there, and I'm going to drag or I'm going to copy and paste this exact loop that we have for the acoustic drum kit. Now, one of the reasons that I'm doing this is it'll allow me very easily to differentiate and to add variation as we move from section to section. So now what I'm going to do is this is like our home base with everything going. But then as we get into the next section, right, we can do something like that. So I'm just going to go into that. So this section here could be like a verse, right? So we'll go with that, and then I could do something like this. So I'll just duplicate that. Okay, now the next thing I want to show you in regards to drums is, and I think this is very important to really add some sophistication and a feeling of high production quality and high production value to your drum tracks, is by making sure the transitions are smooth, as well as making sure that the song is always evolving, right? It's not just a straight loop the whole time. Although some songs you can get away with that, right? Where it's just a straight loop the whole time. But for a standard alternative song, it's generally a great idea to have some variation. So one of the ways you can do that, and this is one of my favorite things to do, is just put what we have so far on a loop and then go browse through other loops just to listen for any little snippets that we might be able to just copy and paste and implement into this beat. So let's find maybe texture lo-fi beats. See this, let's see. I could use this. Let me drag this in. Make sure the tempo, okay, so this is 110. Put that there, that way it syncs to the 112 tempo there. And now we could just do this. Actually, you know what? I have an idea. I'm gonna grab, there's this plugin in Studio One called Extreme, and you can use this as an arpeggiator for audio files, right? Most of us know what an ARP is for, like synth and MIDI, but this is basically an arpeggiator, or you can use this as an arpeggiator for audio. So here, okay, there we go. See, here's without the arpeggiator turned on. It's just there the whole time. But, and we can turn that down. So it just acts as like a little texture piece, right? So I can build off of that. So we're starting to get a little bit of a beat. We're transitioning from this. You know, this could be like a verse. Okay, I like that. So this could work really nicely. Here, so I think one of the best ways to use loops like this, where you just want to implement some extra sounds and some extra interest, is especially focus on one phrase or one section transitioning to the next section. See, that's what I'm going to do here. I'm only going to use the last one here as this is going to transition into this. I'm going to copy this entire section over with everything on it. So here. Right? So we've added a transition there just by browsing through these loops. So as you can see here, this is all about experimentation. It's all about playing around and just pulling a bunch of things in. What often happens is most of the time you'll end up just scrapping a lot of what you pulled into your session, and that's okay. You just want to play around. It's the same idea as when you're writing. Like, the best creative writers will tell you to not edit it as you're writing it. You just want to write, and then have a separate session where you go back and edit it. It's the same concept here, where you're just pulling in a bunch of loops, throwing stuff against the wall, seeing if it works, and then you keep what really works, and then you scrap the rest. But this truly is one of my favorite ways to make a beat more interesting, is by, especially with these transition effects, by just browsing through loops and just picking out little snippets of it to put in at different sections of the song, just to make the song more interesting and to add some variation. Okay, now let's add some processing to these drums. So I'm going to select all these drum tracks, right click, add bus for selected channels. That way we can process them all on one bus. And now, to start, I'm just going to pull in RC20. So I'm just going to browse through some presets here. Yeah, I mainly want this for that distortion. I like this iron. This sounds kind of cool. Now, one final tip when it comes to mixing drums, and I think this is such an easy thing to do, but it's such an easy thing to overlook, and it's often forgotten and not implemented, is use a filter. Use something as simple as a filter can completely change the dynamic, and it can make your song infinitely more interesting. So I'm just gonna go to the drum bus again. I'm gonna pull in a standard old EQ, and I'm gonna automate the high cut. So I pulled this, now I can automate that. And like, we can do this. We can pretend that this is like an intro. fades in, or that, right? Now you could also do that at, say, the end of the verse before it goes into the big chorus again. So let's see how that sounds. See? It's just that those dynamics, and this is such a simple thing to do, is to just put a filter on the drum bus and just experiment with different sections of the song, filtering it out, bringing it back up. It can make such a difference, and it's one of the easiest things and most powerful techniques to make your drums more interesting from start to finish. Okay, tip number 2 for producing better alternative music is put a crap ton of saturation and compression on the lead vocal. Okay, so here's the vocal with a bunch of processing on it, and then I'll go step by step and show you how I got this sound. Catch me floating. First off, I know my voice sounds terrible today. Been dealing with like allergies and whatnot. It's been great. It's been fun. But anyway, let's ignore that to the best of your ability, and let's focus on the project at hand. Here we go. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. She said that I should change my clothes. I exaggerate the life we used to know. Oh yeah. Slow down on Monday, my sound on Wednesday, it might get loud. Okay, now let's go step by step. How did I get this sound? So first off, I started with just a little bit of auto-tune. I just used Waves Tune, very basic, very standard, A major. That's the key that I'm in here, and I just roll with that. Then the bulk of what you hear is coming from JJP vocals here. I've got the compression all the way up at about 2 o'clock, so it's really compressing it, which is, again, that's what you want for this genre. You really want those vocals to pop and cut through and be really punchy and really in your face. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. She said that I should change my clothes. I exaggerate the life we used to know. All right, and then after that, I just slapped a basic Valhalla vintage verb directly onto the track with about a 1 second decay time. Oh yeah. Slow down on Monday, my sound. Oh, I forgot to turn that off. Yeah, and then I sent it to an effects channel here, which this is a slap delay over here. On Wednesday. And I just went with the single and I spread it out so you get that wide slap delay at around 89 milliseconds. It might get loud. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. She said that I should change my clothes. I exaggerate the life we used to know. All right, and then I just put an EQ on to cut away some of that 2K range, which is where all that cold and that Chris Martin sound is coming from. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. And then here's where you really get into the saturation and the distortion. So I put on saturation knob. Said that I should change my clothes. I exaggerate. And that beefs it up really nicely. And then as a counter, no, not a counter, it's more of as an addition to that, as a layer to that, I put on a distortion plugin. This is just a stock plugin in Studio One. The life we used to know. And I've got the mix knob all the way down at around 9 o'clock. Oh yeah. Slow down on Monday, my sound on Wednesday, it might get loud. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. She said that I should change my clothes. I exaggerate the life we. And that's it. That's what I did with the vocals. So it's pretty basic as to what you're trying to achieve. The two biggest things are compress the heck out of it and saturate and distort the heck out of it. Bring that vocal to the front of the mix and really let it pop and cut through. Alright, now before we get to the home stretch of this video, I have a gift for you just for watching, and that is called, it's a free guide, it's called 5 Steps to a Spotify Level Production. This lays out in PDF form, it's about 15 to 20 pages, and you get to really get a sense of this leads to this, leads to this, leads to this, leads to this. The 5 steps of how to get your song to the place where it can fit in a Spotify curated playlist. That's the goal. And so that, I think, is really going to help you to get an understanding of what that process looks like. And it's not as daunting as you might think. It just takes practice and it takes reps. So that is a free guide for you. I think you should go get it. I think it'll be extremely helpful for you. Link is in the description, absolutely free. Check that out. All right, let's wrap up this video. Okay, finally, tip number 3 is use bass and electric guitars to strengthen and enhance the groove. Now, I mean that very literally. Like, you don't want to be playing something completely different. Most of the time, you want your bass and your guitar to really follow the groove of that was created by the drums. So, do. Right, so I'm gonna grab my guitar and let's see if we can come up with something that is kind of in that ballpark. And then I'm gonna grab the Ampire inside of Studio One, which is just an amp modeling. So it might sound something like this. So do you hear what I'm doing there? I'm reinforcing the groove that we've already created with the drums. So if I just loop this loop and then bring in the guitar, right, they're almost mirroring each other. It's all part of one groove that really works together. Now, this doesn't have to happen in every song this precisely, right? Sometimes it can be cool to add some counter melodies to that, some counter rhythms. But I think at the foundation, you want at least some semblance of symmetry, and you want to lock that groove into place by especially using drums, bass, and electric guitar to achieve that and to really lock that groove in. All right, so with everything thrown together, here's what we got. Catch me floating circles in my fishbowl, keep things fresh. She said that I should change my goals. I exaggerate the life we used to know. Oh yeah, slow down. Alright, that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you didn't already, be sure to download my 5 steps to a Spotify level production. Link is in the description. It's absolutely free. Thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in another video very soon. See ya.